Hello, and welcome to another episode of the White Lightning Podcast. I'm your host, Ben Wheeler. It is a Sunday morning. We're trying to churn this episode out before the games today. With me is my NFL boy, Eric. What's up, man?
What's up, man? How's it
What's
going?
up? Doing good, man. Doing good. I want to get an episode real quick. It's been 2 weeks since we dropped an NFL episode.
Yep.
I'm upset about it. I need to be better. You need to call me out.
Yeah,
But
I should have been there.
these past 2 weeks have been crazy for the Browns, and I can't believe I haven't took some time to talk about it. I'm going to talk about it right now, and I'm excited. And no messing around because Eric's got a game at 1,
Yep.
Steelers Jags. So we're going to try to make this a good episode, but we want to get through some stuff. So without further ado, let's go. And if you don't mind, Eric, do you mind me talking about my team, my boys?
You're the host, so hit me with
Okay.
it.
Okay. These past 2 weeks for the Browns, for me, have been the most enjoyable and fun 2 weeks in the past 3 years. I really believe that, bro. With everything that has happened these past 2 weeks, purely the game, it has been so fun. And I want to talk about the Niners game. Here it is. We finally get a chance to talk about it. But it is just crazy that everything that we went through that week, and we pulled it off. And I still stand on this. That is the best regular season game for the Browns in the past 3 years. And that is probably a top 10 regular season win since the Browns came back to Cleveland. I really do believe that. I just think with no starting quarterback, no Nick Chubb, no Jack Conklin, Bitonio was out that game. You're playing at that point what was the best team in football. They haven't lost a game in 15 straight regular season games. And you beat them on your home turf. I just think that meant something, dude. I just think that meant something. It's that meme. It's that meme. It's like that guy. It's like, this means something to me, man. For real. That means something, dude.
Yeah.
And just, I didn't care about what fashion it looked. I understand that our offense looked poor. But it's just one of those when you're dealing with all that, just get the win. And it was
However
so
you can.
crazy.
Yep.
What do you say?
However you can take a win, you have to take it. Obviously, because I've learned most of it being a Pittsburgh fan. I've taken wins in the worst way possible. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean it probably felt good to be a Browns fan, winning a game like the 49ers. So
Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
this was what was crazy, Eric. This is what was crazy for me. I watched the Niners first drive, 84 yards, 7-play touchdown drive.
I thought, yeah, I know.
And in our very next ensuing possession, we throw a pick.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yep, this is going to get ugly. This is going to get ugly. Eric, this is insane. The Niners in that first drive had 84 yards. Okay.
Oh,
They had 80 yards over their next 35 plays of the game.
that's insane, man.
There was a point at the start of the fourth quarter or end of the third, the Niners had negative 12 yards of total offense in the half. The defense was unreal. It was, after that first touchdown drive, it just felt like it was a 3-and-out. It was a 3-and-out, 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 3-and-out. We gave them short field for that Jordan Mason touchdown. They had a field goal, I believe, in the second quarter. But it was a defensive masterclass from the Browns against the Niners. It was the best I've ever seen the Browns defense look in a game this year, especially with the team that you were playing. So that meant something, dude. And it's funny, our offense looked poor, and PJ Walker got the start because Watson got rolled out, and we thought he was going to play. That's for another episode. His stats don't look that great, but it was a game-winning drive, bro.
Yep.
It was a couple penalties that were questionable, and you talked my ear off about it that week. We still scored, and we won the game. Thank you, Jake Moody. Thank you, Jake Moody. I fell in love again. Thank you, Jake Moody. But, yeah, I just wanted to talk about that week. What do you think about that?
Flat out, I mean, give credit to that freaking defense, man. I mean, they were truly, truly clutch, and it seems like just with Watson going down all year, that defense has been huge, and it's stepped up like game by game. You can tell they're getting better and better and better. Just gluing with each other. And like I remember like because I Pittsburgh was playing or no, they had a bye week that week. And I remember the three AFC North teams were playing like three really good teams. And it was just each team won. And it was like it felt like it was a loss for Pittsburgh,
Exactly right.
even though we
Right.
weren't even playing. It was like, come on.
Yeah. Right.
And for the Browns, it was just like it's just like every single time you've seen the 49ers get the ball, you guys had them in like third and long, fourth and long, and I think that game was that the game where it was like raining, it was like very bad weather.
Weather was poor. It was
Yeah.
windy. It was rainy. Yeah, it was peak Cleveland Browns Cleveland weather.
And you got to give it up to PJ Walker. I mean, I think I told you this on the call, man. I mean, he stepped up in there and it's won you two games and just
Right.
I mean, like I said, if he wins this game, you guys could be looking at a playoff spot, and
Yeah.
you got to give him some credit. And that defense is probably top five. And yeah,
Yeah.
so
No, I just think a couple other stats, and then I want to get into the game that happened with you the very next week.
yeah,
The Niners against the Browns. I told you. After their 84-yard touchdown drive, they had 80 yards over the next 35 plays. They were 3 for 12 on third down 2 Sundays ago. Brock Purdy had his worst game as a starter. I don't know if that was it's even debatable. He was 12 for 27. He had 125 yards. He had a pick. He had a 55 QB rating, a 44% completion rating. He leads the league with 72. And McCaffrey, he got hurt in the fourth quarter, but up to that point, he was averaging 3.9 yards a carry. That was the lowest rushing yards they had in a game since the NFC Championship. It was Purdy's worst game as a starter. And
yep.
this stat is crazy. I just had to say this real quick. 45% of the 49ers yards against the Browns were through penalty.
Wow.
Almost half of the Niners' total yards against the Browns were through penalty.
In a Kyle Shanahan driven off.
Right. Right. And I think
That's
those stats right there summarize what the entire game was. It was a defensive masterclass. It was incredible to watch. Everybody stepped up. And the Browns offense, again, we give them a lot of crap. They put up 19 points against the Niners defense.
Yep.
Eric, through 7 weeks, only 2 teams has scored more points against that Niners defense. Vikings and Rams. That's it. I'm just saying. Yeah. I'm not saying PJ Walker's that great, but dude, he did just enough to beat the Niners. Just enough. That's saying something, dude. I thought that was an impressive stat. But enough about me ranting about the Browns. You agree. Can we talk about that Steelers-Ravens game that happened the week after before we get into your guys' win that happened against the Rams last Sunday?
I'm just going to say this. It wasn't the best win. It was one of those wins where we looked at it and we were like, that was a Pittsburgh win.
Yes.
Just by the amount of factors that happened. The Ravens had six drops. 2 of them could have been touchdowns.
Absolutely.
Lamar, I'm just gonna say this. I think the biggest call of the game that I think that changed the game, that kind of took the Ravens out of the game, was the 4th and 1 before the half when they went for it. That completely changed the game and mindset. If you go look back at that play, it was 10-3. If you take your points, go look at the final score.
Right.
That would have won you the football game. Mind you, you have Justin Tucker, which is not going to miss. Yeah. Like, let's just be honest. He's not going to miss.
Right.
And to get to now, let's get to the Steelers. The defense was, we all know, great, incredible. The Ravens were actually manhandling them in the first half. Lamar played, he actually played a pretty good game besides the drops. He would have had like 400 yards passing, I bet.
I don't look at Lamar and see that's why they lost.
No, he's the last person. He's the like his stats may not look good like on a paper, but he should have threw for 3 touchdowns.
Right.
But again, I'm just gonna say this week the offense slightly got better, and down the stretch, what we've seen from last year, Kenny Pickett coming in clutch again. He has 6 game-winning drives. Or 6 game-winning touchdowns through 19 of his starts.
That's a
I think
pretty. That's an interesting stat. That's an interesting stat.
with this Pittsburgh offense, I'm telling you, if they start fast, this offense and this team could go somewhere. But it all starts with their offense. And I think I'll get to the next game later, but you could tell in the Rams game, they really picked up the momentum in the run game, then set up the pass game. And yeah, that was my thoughts about the game. And George Pickens, he was clutch, man. He's truly, truly clutch.
You know, it is so funny, Eric. I'm watching the game with my dad in my basement. It was the Steelers-Ravens game.
Yep.
And when Lamar threw that pick to Odell and Joey Porter caught it, picked it off, I believe, right?
Yep.
I told my dad, I said, yep, the Steelers are winning this game. Like, they're winning this game. I knew it at that very second. I'm like, these are not games the Steelers lose.
Oh, yeah.
They don't. If it's an ugly slop fest and if it's a defensive battle, you know who's coming out on top.
Yep.
And I think you described it the best. That's the Steelers' way to win games. We always critique them about, oh, they're fraudulent and, oh, well, how good is their quarterback? How good is their offense? Mike Tomlin will slop this team to 9 games. You'll make the playoffs, whether you like it or not. You know, slop them to 9 wins. You'll make the playoffs. And that showed that, like, that was the Steelers' way to win the game. And I agree with you. I was incredibly impressed with Kenny Pickett on that last drive.
Yep.
And that Pickens touchdown it doesn't get much cleaner than that. Does not.
And it was really,
and
it was really ballsy because we were trying to go for a field goal. I mean, that was to put the game away, and they were blitzing the house. They seen one-on-one with Marlon Humphrey. Marlon Humphrey, a really good corner, and Pickens, you could see he audibled, and they threw it up, and luckily he caught it, and they scored, and they won the game. That's just a ballsy play call.
Yeah.
So
yeah. No, I was impressed. You know, I was so disgusted though. It's like, is that not how the Steelers have to win? You know, drops and missed opportunities, and when the opposing team has bad coaching decisions, it just doesn't matter. But yeah, that was a great win for you guys in week 6.
Yeah, it was 6 because we had a bye week and then we played the Rams.
Yes, week 6. That was a very good win for you guys. Real quick, I'm going to talk about my Colts game. I want you to talk about your Rams game, and then let's talk about this game coming up. So it's so funny with this Colts game that happened just a Sunday ago. You come off the Niners game. Your defense plays great. You're playing your butt off. You're doing, you know what I mean? The Colts scored 38 points on Sunday. It wasn't Anthony Richardson. It was Gardner Minshew that had 38 total points. The Colts had 456 yards of total offense. Gardner Minshew had 305 yards passing, 2 passing touchdowns, and 2 rushing touchdowns. That's the first game of his career that he's done that. And it's funny. It's like what makes me so mad is Ravens game. We allowed 28 points to Lamar and also allow his first 2 passing, 2 rushing touchdown game. And you're like, okay, this is weird. Maybe this is a fluke. Then you go to the Niners game. It's like, yep, this is the defense I know. We're great. We're the best defense in football. No doubt this is incredible. And then 38 points to Gardner Minshew? It's like, how does that happen? And it was so weird, Eric. It was like we were either picking off Gardner Minshew or him having a fumble. And then the very next drive was a touchdown. It was so inconsistent the whole day. But again, we found a way to win.
Yep.
You know, Myles Garrett was the MVP of the game. He had the blocked field goal. That was insane, where he doesn't touch any of the O-line and blocks it. He had 2 strip sacks, one of them being recovered in the end zone. He was incredible.
Yep.
And again, you know, Jerome Ford starts the game with the touchdown. Dustin Hopkins was the AFC Special Team Player of the Week. He has been maybe the best trade that the Browns have made in recent memory, which I can't believe I'd say that considering what we did at quarterback, but it really has been, you know. But again, PJ Walker doesn't play good. He has 178 yards and an INT. Excuse my language, but damn it, Eric, he did it again, dude. 2-minute touchdown drill, had a big play to Elijah Moore. Big 20-yard play to DPJ. Again, some questionable penalties. But 4th and goal in the red zone, Kareem Hunt gets the touchdown and wins the game. It's like, just like what you said and what we started off this episode, find a way to win. No starting running back, no starting quarterback. Jack Conklin's out. Find a way to win, and we did. And it was one of those games where it was like, okay, let's just move on. Let's just get the win. Let's forget that this happened with our defense. Obviously, we need to address why can't we get inconsistency, but that was just a big win, dude. It was such
Yeah,
a big
it
win.
was huge.
Again, I said after the Niners game that felt like a win that you stack a couple wins on. Well, there was one, you know, and that's just my big takeaway from this Colts game was I'd rather take an ugly win than a bad loss because I've been in the company of seeing some bad losses, obviously. And when your situation is how it is right now, just find a way to win. Go to 4-2. I don't know if you were able to catch that game, but what'd you think about that game on Sunday?
I caught a little bit of it, and I'm just gonna say this: the defense surprisingly got decreased, and it was just the way they played Gardner Minshew. It just looked different, and I don't understand what they changed from 49ers to the Colts game. It was just
Very bizarre.
it was just one of them days in the NFL where you're just kind of like you just question yourself, like, what the heck?
Right. Right.
Um, yeah, I thought PJ Walker didn't play that good. Watson started the game, looked awful. I mean, you showed me a couple clips and he just looked awful.
Yeah, that's an episode for this week. I really want to dissect into that. That whole
Yeah.
situation has just been upsetting. But
And
yeah.
he honestly should have had two picks. The one just was dropped.
Yes.
So yeah,
Yes.
he should have had two picks, and he barely even played through. When did he get hurt? First quarter.
First quarter landed hard on his head.
Yeah,
Completed concussion protocol, but they said that they didn't want to risk further injury.
yeah,
What?
yeah.
The shoulder that was medically cleared to play, or the head that was medically cleared to play. Interesting, but yeah,
Yeah.
continue.
So yeah, that happened, and then yeah, PJ Walker. I mean, like I said in the last game, came in clutch through the end, led you guys to a game-winning drive. Almost, it was a close one, but Kareem Hunt put it in, won you
Yeah.
guys the game. But yeah, definitely a question on defense. I think this defense will be fine. Maybe that was just a little fluke, but yeah, again, my big credit goes out to Dustin Hopkins. How many field goals did he have? Four or
I believe
five?
he had 5.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude. Yeah,
Yeah, that was
he's been
really he
incredible.
was really big. I mean, he was making 50 yarders, I think.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and I'm just gonna say this: credit to the second best edge rusher in football, Miles Garrett.
Josh, yeah. I knew Steelers fans got to throw that in there, but yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, but I truly do think I don't know. I haven't watched all of Browns games, but I do think that game right there was his best overall game as a Cleveland Brown. I mean, he was flat out dominant.
Yeah,
Nobody was touching him.
yeah. That was his signature Miles game. For years, I've always critiqued Miles because I just felt like Watt, Boza, and Parsons were in a different company from him. But this year he's showing that he is right there with Watt. It's him and Watt and everybody else. That was his signature game, and this has got to be his depoy year. That's what I said. I said, you got to go get depoy this year. This defense is playing good. You got to step up. You got to win depoy. You got to lead this defense. He has been, and that was his signature game. Hopkins had 4 made field goals. His longest one was 58. It felt like 5. It felt like 10. I mean, but he played absolutely incredible. But my little roundup is from the Colts before I want you to get to the Rams game was like what I started with. PJ Walker did just enough to win this game. The defense, again, that was another fluke. I think they are good. I am now questioning if they are as good as we think they are. They are still a good defense, but 2 of the past 3 weeks have been awful. But I was impressed. And I will say this: that the red zone possession by the Browns was perfectly play called by Kevin Stefanski because you had no timeouts. You had, I believe, 35 seconds left, and you said, okay, you're going to have to try to run the ball once because we were on the 2-yard line, but you couldn't run it in the early downs or else the time would have taken off 30 seconds. Yeah. So we passed it 3 times, 4th time, ran it to Hunt. Like, I was just like, that's perfect. That is absolutely perfect. But I want to hear about your
one thing. For these last 3 or 2 games, I want to give a big credit to Kevin Stefanski. Now, I don't know how Browns feels about him still, but he has really done a great job of what he's had this whole year. but what everything he's been through with Watson, yeah, I mean, it's just a little questionable with that whole thing. But
Yeah.
he's had them boys ready, and you could tell like he's still like he's had them ready, energized and ready to go these past two games. And I think that you should. I think you have to give him a big pat on the back for that. So
100%. And I was going to talk about him at the end of the episode, but we can talk about it now. This is the best 2-game stretch for coaching that Kevin Stefanski has had over his entire tenure.
easily,
I really do believe that. And
yeah,
obviously, I blame him a little bit for the malpractice with Watson. Like, I'm not
yeah,
sure like what he's saying and how he's clearing him, but Watson says he doesn't feel good, But putting up 19 points against the Niners, I think is impressive with what you had with PJ Walker, and finding a way to win against the Colts. I think it's impressive, man. I like what you said with everything that's stacked up against us. I just think going on a 2-game win streak with horrible quarterback play and without probably a top 3 running back in football, that says something. So I totally agree. I'm glad you brought that up.
yep,
I give Stefanski a lot of crap. Over the past couple years, I've questioned a lot of the things that he's done, but for these past 2 games, I'm very, very impressed with him.
yep, definitely.
Very impressed. I'm glad you brought that up, but let's bring up a really big win for you guys that happened just a Sunday
Huge
ago.
one. It was definitely a really big win, and I'm gonna summarize it the best I can because we're on a little time
Yeah.
limit here. But
Yeah.
I think this was the best offensive game we've seen from Pittsburgh in a long time.
Absolutely.
It was very, very balanced. We were averaging 5.5 yards a play. The line, man. I'd say what the offensive line played their best game since last year. Dan Moore had, as much as I hate the dude, had his best game as a Pittsburgh Steeler. Najee and Jalen Warren were running forward, and it opened up the pass game. Now we started off slow once again, but we usually don't wake up till the fourth quarter. Now this time it was this whole second half. You just seen a really shift in momentum. Holes were opening up. And I think what I told my dad before that game was if we do play better, it's because the factor of Deontay Johnson coming back. Deontay Johnson had a really big 2 plays. He had 78 yards. And then George Pickens, obviously, another huge game, 100 yards. But yeah, I think this is one game where you can finally look at and say the offense won you the game. Now, the defense still played really good game. I mean, they obviously couldn't guard Puka, but I'd rather have Cup. They held Cup to 29 yards.
Yeah, that was insane. I couldn't
Great.
believe I was watching that.
I mean, they played him perfectly, but I mean, they obviously still had Puka for 146 yards.
Right.
But I'd rather have Puka do something than Cup because
Yeah.
But yeah, but you can finally say that this offense finally looked like an offense, and we've seen this offense. That was that offense we were supposed to see from this year, or the offense we were supposed to see from last year to this year. And if, like I said, if we get this offense to do first half and second half of football, this team could be really good just because of the defense they have. And you know what the crazy part was? TJ Watt was a non-factor that whole game. He had
Yeah.
one pick. He was a non-factor. He had no sacks, and it was one game where you said to yourself, "Where was TJ Watt?"
Mm-hmm.
And then you looked at it and you're like, "The offense played good," and that was the reason why you won the game. And I haven't been able to say that in forever.
Yeah. Right.
So yeah, I mean, props to the offense, man.
Yeah, that it's so funny. We've said in past episodes was when was the last time you watched a Steelers game
Yep.
and the Steelers offense played better than the Steelers defense? And the reason that you won was because of the Steelers offense. You saw that last Sunday.
Yep.
That was the best I have seen Kenny Pickett look.
He looked good. Yeah.
That was the best I had seen him look. I remember he had a stretch of throws. It was Pickens across the middle. It was Pickens on the sideline where he had a back shoulder and he turned it perfectly. He had a throw to Johnson.
Yep.
Johnson. Yeah, I was incredibly impressed with him. And again, do I think Pickett can be a starter on a Super Bowl winning team or a, AFC championship team? I don't know. I lean towards no. Is he better than how his stats have looked throughout his career? Exponentially. I think that's because of it's hard to really fairly critique him with what Matt Canada has done for him these past 2 years, but he overcame that on Sunday. That was the best I've seen him look. And you absolutely said it. You're absolutely right. When was the last time a Steelers offense played better than Steelers defense? It was very nice of the refs to give Kenny Pickett the first down when he was clearly short. But no, I just think that the Rams are an interesting team. I talk about them all the time. You got to get that one big pick from Stafford. He's going to throw one a game. Can you get that big pick when it mattered? And it did. And it was Watt. So that was a big win for you guys in SoFi, even though it was pretty much a home game for you guys. Like every game is in SoFi. But I was very well pleased. And I thought the stats you pulled from that game were very interesting. Absolutely very interesting. But I want to cap this episode with the couple minutes remaining with this. I want to talk about the preview to the Seattle game. And I want to talk about just like my overall consensus for the past 2 weeks. One, this Seattle game, I think, is going to be our biggest, toughest task yet. Because I think, okay, you got that Niners win. That was fun. Defense played good. Colts game, okay, you squeaked it out. Can you win 3 in a row with PJ Walker as your starting quarterback? If you are able to do that today, that's when you're like, whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa. And obviously, I think the Niners win was impressive. The Colts win was great. But I think that this Seahawks win would be just that. Not as impressive as the Niners win to me, but pretty close. You know, in Seattle, probably the toughest place to play in football, or top 5. But I will say this about Seattle. They are kind of like the Browns, where their identity has completely flipped. Like last year, it was, we're going to beat you with their offense. Our defense is kind of crappy. But it's completely reversed this year. Geno isn't playing that well. Through 6 games last year, Geno had 9 touchdowns, 2 picks. And through the 6 games this year, he has 7 touchdowns, 4 picks. And their red zone offense is awful. Geno Smith inside the 20-yard line has a 43% completion rating. Yes.
The game they lost to of the Bengals, they were in the red zone 5 times and scored once.
That's insane.
And they lost by 4 or something like that. It was like a 1-score game, but it was, So
no, that's insane. And it's just crazy again, like how I tell you that just their team has completely reversed. Some really interesting stats here. And I want to talk about Geno Smith. Through 6 games last year, or through 5 games last year, he had 9 touchdowns, 2 picks, 72% QBR, 75% completion rating, 114 rating. Through 5 games this year, 7 touchdowns, 4 picks, 61 QBR, 68 completion rating, 93 overall rating. So he's worse. And this is interesting. They have the 5th worst red zone offense in football. Over the past 3 weeks, 33% of their red zone possessions turn into touchdowns. So you're facing a Seahawks team with woes offensively, but their defense, I have some other great stats here, are playing great.
Their defense is really good.
They're absolutely playing great. Devon Witherspoon is the only cornerback in football with above 80 grade in rush and coverage. They're great against the run. They're great against yards. They're allowing a top 10 fewest points in football. This game today at 4:05 will be determined by which underperforming offensive unit can show up. Right? You know what I mean? Because the Browns are struggling. The Seattle Seahawks are struggling offensively, but their defense is playing great for both sides. Which offense can store on this stellar defense will be the reason they win the game. What do you think about that?
I think you hit everything on the nose, but I'm gonna give a little prediction right now. I'm gonna get to that point. So the Seattle, we obviously know, are really all right mid football team right now. And
right now,
the Browns are hot. They have some things going, but I think playing at Seattle with PJ Walker for a 3rd straight game to win, I don't see it happening 3 in a row. I think Seattle will bounce back. I think it'll be a close game, but I don't see PJ Walker going into Seattle and winning that game.
I I it, I will say this. I find it interesting, and I was talking to my friends this morning about it. The line is 4.5.
Yeah.
I don't like the Browns to cover 4.5, but I don't even like the Seattle Seahawks to cover 4.5.
I think it'll be like 3.
This game is going to be weird. Yeah, and I totally agree with you. I think this Seattle defense, they're giving up the 11th fewest yards per game, the 6th fewest rushing yards per game, the 12th fewest average yards per game. And I just think that this defense is tough. You're asking a third-string quarterback to go play in one of the hardest places in football. Yeah. Wow. Again, I'll just say this. It's incredibly interesting if we pull it off. It's incredibly
Who do you think will win? Who do you think will win?
Well, you know what my heart says, and you know what my mind says.
Yeah.
I just think that it's going to be really hard for PJ Walker to win 3 games in a row.
Yeah.
And I'll just say that. It's going to be really hard. It's going to be really hard. If we're at home, this is interesting. But you're at away, third game. When can the magic run out? This is interesting for sure. But I got a Browns win today because I have to. How about that? All right. My mind tells me that it's going to be really hard for PJ to win his 3rd straight game. From a non-biased perspective, I would not be stunned if Seattle pulls this off today. But my heart has to say that I think the Browns do have a chance, obviously, because of how good their defense is. And if that defense against the Niners can show up and you can get competent quarterback play, I think you can win this game. But that has to be the no factors is your Browns defense has to be top 5 today, and PJ Walker has to lead a competent offense. You have to put points on the board. So, I mean, what do you think about your Steelers-Jags game to wrap this up?
I think this game is going to be a really hard one to tell. But I like Pittsburgh's chances in this game. Because like the rain is going to be bad, and that kind of puts it in for our favor a lot. Because now they have to run the ball, and we can obviously stop their run. Now, what's interesting about that is our run defense is like almost dead last, which is a interesting stat. So, as much as you guys want to say these Steelers defense is good, the run defense is poor. It's really poor.
Yeah.
But I think we match up very well with the Jags. I think we're going to get stops, and I think this offense will continue to what they do last week, and I think we will get enough points to pull out this game.
Yeah.
But deep down, something tells me I've seen this with Pittsburgh too many times where they win 2 or 3 games in a row, and then they have this game where they just forget how to play football and they get blown out. And for some reason, in that feeling, I have a feeling that is going to happen. So I'm kind of in the middle. It's just like it's so hard because it's 2 teams that are playing pretty good football right now.
Right.
And
you're catching the Jags at a bad time, obviously. They're playing well.
And their pass defense, I think, is almost ranking dead last. I seen.
Mm-hmm.
I forget where I seen that at, but someone was talking about it earlier. So, I mean, it's just a hard game with all the rain, and I don't know. We'll see.
I will say if it's a bad weather game, you know who that favors.
Yeah.
The Jags want to pass. They're a dynamic offense. They want to keep their offense on the field. But if it's rainy and bad conditions, and if it's going to be a defensive game, you know who that favors.
Yeah.
I like the Steelers' chances today. They catch the Jags at a bad time. They're at home.
Yeah.
You guys are at home today. Yes?
Yep.
Yeah, you're at home. You're catching the Jags at a bad time, obviously. They're on a little win streak right now. But the Steelers very well have a chance. I think if you play just as good as you did against the Rams last week, you can beat the Jacksonville Jaguars today.
Easily.
P.J. Watt has to show up. The defense has to be able to play the run better because Travis Etienne's having a solid year.
Yep.
And you got to get some offense production, plain and simple. I think the script is simple. I think the script to beat the Steelers is simple, but I also think it's simple for them to win a game.
Mm-hmm.
If you score more than 24, 25-ish points, you will beat the Steelers.
You win. Oh, yeah. Easily.
But I say the same thing for the Steelers as well. If that defense can show up, and you
You
can
win the
just
game.
be right there with the Jags 24-25, you will win the game. I know that obviously sounds goofy to say that, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, obviously, it's like I'm saying whoever can score more, but I'm saying is the Jaguars' script to beat the Steelers is cause Kenny Pickett and that offense to not show up, and that's it. That's how you beat them. But the Steelers' script is simple: is all you have to do is for that Steelers offense to show up. You know,
Yep.
so that's an interesting one. I'm going to wrap it up here real quick with my takeaways and your takeaways from the past 2 weeks and going into our games. I will say this: one, we have to get more consistency out of our defense. We went from 28 points against the Ravens to 17 against the Niners to 38 against the Colts. You have to become more consistent and figure out why are these explosion games happening. Second off, the wins have been fun. The Niners and the Colts wins have been fun. But this, as of right now, is not sustainable. You cannot continue to have, this is insane. Through 6 weeks, we have gone through 3 quarterbacks. They have combined to have the worst combined QBR, the worst combined passer rating, and the worst completion percentage above expected in the league. It's the worst in all categories. Worse in QBR, worse in rating. PJ Walker has the worst EPA out of all quarterbacks. He has the 11th worst passer rating. He has the 2nd worst QB rating and the league's worst completion percentage in his starts. You have to be better today. Depending how long Watson's out, you have to improve. You cannot just keep on getting by with last game winning second drives and this defense being the best defense in football. So I will say that. Those are your keys. Try to find a way to squeeze out anything you can out of this quarterback position. They have to play a complete game. They can't rely on last-second drives and get some consistency with this defense. If you do that today, you beat Seattle.
Yep.
So that's my thoughts. Eric, last second takeaways.
For us, it's kind of like what you said, but on the opposite side of the ball.
Right.
It's consistency on offense. If you play like you have been all year, you'll lose the game. If you play like you did versus the Rams and you keep playing that way, you have chances to win easily.
Right.
And then number 2, the defense has to stop the run. Every single game I've seen, we give up a bunch of like 10+ yard runs, 20+. Our run defense is poor.
Yeah.
And I think that is going to be a big factor in this game because the Jaguars run game is really good. So if you do those two things, which obviously it seems pretty obvious, but it's like you said, it seems goofy because I mean that's what everybody wants. But those 2 factors is what is going to get it done. If you do not do it and you play soft and you just play poorly, you're not going to win the football game.
Right.
So that's as simple as that, in my opinion.
Absolutely. This episode will be out today. Steelers play in 7 minutes. Browns play in 4 hours. Eric's got to go. Thank you for being on. I appreciate it. Boo Steelers, go Browns. But that was another episode of the White Lightning Podcast. I'm your host, Ben Wheeler. Thank you, Eric, for joining.
Anytime.
Now get out of here, man. Watch this game. Get out of here. Hurry. Hey, have a good week, everybody.